Hello and welcome back to the Trinity Student Managed Fund podcast with me, Emanuele Roncalli di Montorio-Veronese, where I speak with leaders in the world of business, finance and technology to give our students a better insight into the careers we may wish to pursue. Today, I sit down and speak with Mr. Martin Gilbert, who co-founded Aberdeen Asset Management in 1983, leading it to become a global asset management firm through organic growth and acquisitions. Under his leadership, assets under management grew from £70 million to over £300 billion by 2016. Following Aberdeen's merger with Standard Life in 2017, he served as co-CEO and later vice chairman until 2020. Currently, Martin is Chairman of Revolut, AssetCo and Toscafund, and a non-executive director at Glencore. He has held key roles at Sky PLC, First Group, and various financial advisory panels. Recognized among the world's top CEOs, he's received multiple industry awards. An adjunct professor at Imperial College Business School, he holds honorary degrees from several universities. Martin was born in Malaysia and earned an MA in accountancy and an LLB in law from the University of Aberdeen before qualifying as a chartered accountant with Deloitte. I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Mr. Martin Gilbert. So, Mr. Gilbert, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Trinity Student Management podcast.
No problem. Looking forward to it.
All right. So could we start at the very beginning, Mr. Gilbert? You studied law and accountancy at the University of Aberdeen. Could you bring our listeners back to your university days and maybe what was your decision process at the time in terms of careers and what you wanted to do in life?
Well, I think going back even earlier, one of the advantages I probably had in life is I was born in Malaysia. So I know that sounds a weird sort of thing to bring up, but because I was born in Malaysia, I traveled backwards and forwards throughout when I was at school. So it gave me a sense of Asia and travel, and that was quite an important part of my life before I went to boarding school in Scotland. And then it was sort of expected in Scotland in those days that you either became a lawyer or an accountant or a doctor. So all the clever people became doctors, and the less clever ones became accountants. So I became an accountant. I went to university for 5 years, which is about the right length of time you want to go, probably 4 or 5 years, and then did my chartered accountancy after that. I always think accountancy is a great qualification to have because it allows you to understand balance sheets, how to put together a set of accounts. And if you can put together a set of accounts, you can deconstruct a set of accounts and really look beyond the numbers and look at how the numbers are made up.
And so from the degree, it was quite apparent that kind of a business finance route was the
Yeah, and then
direction.
you know, in life, as you know, or you'll find out, is sometimes you need a bit of luck in life. And I met someone who was looking for an accountant with a law degree to join a law firm to manage money. Basically, in Scotland, all the money managers had come out of accountancy firms or law firms because in the 1800s, the late 1800s, early 1900s, when Scotland were investing in the emerging markets of America. It's hard to believe, isn't it, that America was an emerging market in those days. They tended to be run, all these investments came out of, as I say, accountancy or mainly law firms. So Aberdeen Asset Management was spun out of a law firm in Aberdeen.
And you've mentioned, your Scottish heritage and how it's had an impact. How has that impacted, or has it had an influence on like your career and how you conduct business and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, it's especially in the markets where we were strong, Canada, America, Australia, Asia. There's a massive Scottish sort of diaspora out there that that like their Scottish heritage. So we shamelessly used the fact we were a Scottish fund manager when we were building the business. So we used to do burn suppers and all of those sort of things to reinforce our Scottish roots. And investors love the Scottish, a bit like the Irish. They love the Scottish and they love the Irish in America and Canada and Australia, these sort of places. So yeah, we shamelessly used it, as I say.
And I suppose then, you've hired a lot of talent throughout your career. I'd love to know, how do you identify talent? When you're in an interview or when you're meeting someone, what are you looking for? And what are the key signs?
I think it's, I mean, that's a really good question, because I think the way you build culture in an organization is you build it from the bottom up. So you have to grow your own talent. So again, when we were building Aberdeen, we spent an enormous amount of time on hiring the right talent into the group at the graduate level. The other thing is there isn't really in finance a graduate scheme. It's much more an intern scheme, I would say. We would take on 60, 70 interns a year. And out of those interns, we would select maybe 25% of them for the following year's graduate scheme. So it's really a great way to identify talent, because they're working with you for 8 weeks. So it's not an interview, because as you know, in interviews, it's a very short time. An 8-week interview is a much better way of going about it. And so what did we look for? We looked for team players, because the way we ran money was on a team. We never recruited people who were arrogant or any of these sort of things. We really were interested in people who were prepared to learn, who didn't think they knew it all, these sort of things. So I've always, we always looked for something different in the CBs as well. We didn't just recruit people from top universities. We employed people across the board. We liked people who played team sports. Sometimes they were, they got the team culture, and often they were very efficient time managers as well at university, because they have to balance the academic sort of side with team sports. So yeah, we recruited some people who did maths and engineering, but we were also interested in people with other types of degrees who could think. So yeah, it was a really, really important part of our culture, actually, recruiting people.
And from my research, I read that you were actually personally involved in all the interviews for that.
Yeah, I did them all at the end. I mean, myself and some of my other senior guys who were really interested in the graduate program did all the interviews at the end, the final interview, just to. We rarely rejected anyone because they'd been through such a rigorous process by then. They'd been recommended by someone that they should be put forward. So yeah, it worked well, and we liked it. We really worked hard at it, and then what we did was we tried to make sure that that people who were graduates got the first crack at any jobs that came up, and so on. And in the rotation, they would often not make it to the end of a 2-year rotation because someone would grab them if they were really talented and take them into their team. So it worked really well, and it was a great way to, as I say, build the culture from below. And now, they're all over the city, all our grads. So, and they keep in touch, which is really nice.
That's Scottish network.
Often they thank me for helping them in their career, which is really nice as well. It's really, it's really rewarding when you help someone and they go places, which is great.
And I suppose on the investment side, I'd be really curious to know, you worked and met with some of the best investors in the world. When you're looking to invest in a manager, what are the qualities and what are you looking for then? I know you've mentioned, not looking at people that are arrogant. These are red flags. I mean, what are some, yeah.
Team players, probably more than anything else, inquisitive. They've got to be inquisitive because asset managers know a little about a lot rather than a lot about a little, if you follow me. So they tend to be generalists and they know a lot of, they cover, they can cover, if they're in the emerging market team, they can cover masses of countries and masses of industries. So yeah, they've got to be inquisitive and do their own research. We were very keen on doing our own research. And just being inquisitive, as I say, and being skeptical as well, because of course CEOs are the best people at selling their own companies. So you've got to be inquisitive and dig deeply, which is why that basic accountancy ability is pretty useful as well to an asset manager. And cash flow, someone who can work out cash, that's the key. Cash is king in businesses.
Could you bring us back to the early days of Aberdeen? I mean, what was that like? Did you ever expect it to be as what it is today?
No, not really, because three of us started in a room, so it was very small, and I mean, we built it into an organization. I can't remember, 40 offices, 300 odd billion. We started with 50 million, and when we merged with Standard Life, we would have been about 300 and something billion, with turnover of over $1 billion and profits of 300 million. So it was a big organization by the end, with clients in 80 countries. Yeah, no, it was a remarkable run, really, I suppose. And I mean, you sort of, it was quite interesting. You would think you'd done nothing. You would look back on a year and then suddenly it would dawn on you, actually, you'd done a lot in that year. And during the year, you didn't think you were doing that much. You were just sort of running the business, but it kept getting bigger and bigger and more and more successful, I suppose. And we had our difficulties as well. I mean, it wasn't all good, and we had about a 2.5-year debacle in the early 2000s with Split Cap Investment Trust. We were fortunate to survive that. But I think, as a CEO, it's the hard times that make you rather than the good times. It's easy to be a CEO in the good times. You just sort of ride the crest of a wave. It's the difficult times that sort of dictate whether you're a good CEO or not.
I find, looking at some of the most successful people like you, and can we go a bit deeper into the difficult times? Because I think this is probably the most inspiring aspect of a story. As you said, it's very nice to see the big success and where it is today, but
yeah,
I'd love to know, going back to those moments, low moments, how do you push through? How do you, and what are your strategies on a personal level, and then also kind of broader for the company?
Yeah, I think you've just got to be visible. I think I tried to be as visible as possible during the tough times. You don't want to be hiding away. You've got to, I never had an office. So, I mean, I had an office, but I didn't use it. It was sort of, I'd go in if someone wanted to speak to me privately, but I always sat out on the floor, and then I always knew what was happening. And I always liked the fact that I always tried to have a desk at the far end of the open plan. So you had to walk the whole distance through it. It's those small things that make a difference. Speak to people. You got to appear confident that you know what you're doing. And I think, I read once, I can't remember who it was, said, all you can do is go in that day and do the best you can that day, not think too far ahead. I think if you think too far ahead, you just depress yourself. You just gotta go in and do what you can, and then go home, come back in the next day. But I was lucky. The board supported me. I mean, I'm not sure now the board would be allowed to be so supportive, or would be so supportive. So yeah, I was lucky, and it was interesting. The most supportive director was, and they were all supportive. So when I say the most supportive, the one that was the most supportive was Malcolm Rifkind, who'd been a government minister. He was a politician, and I didn't think he would be flaky, but I didn't think he would be as supportive as he was. And he was absolutely amazing because he was a lawyer himself. He he could see, he would look at it analytically, and no, it was a fascinating time. And our share price went down 95%. And most CEOs never survive a 95% fall in the share price. They don't survive a 75% or 80%. But I survived it, and we rebuilt the company into a better company than we were. The chairman of the Treasury Select Committee, who pulled us apart in public on a couple of occasions, I remember he said to me, "You learned your lesson. And, you came before this committee, you left with, your tail between your legs, but you learned your lesson and built a better company as a result of it." And we did. So it's not an experience you would want to go through more than a couple of times once, but it certainly made us as a business.
And what do you think are like the defining characteristics of a successful financial firm? You've mentioned culture and talent, and going through these.
Yeah, resilience. I think having a culture is definitely up there. Having a process, basically having a process of how you go about it. So we were very sort of research driven is the wrong word, because we didn't produce research, but we did a lot of our own work rather than rely on external research. So we had a strong culture. We meet the management, and our fund managers were spread all over the world. They weren't all. You can run a centralized model, or you can run a decentralized model. We ran a decentralized model with fund managers in as far afield as Sydney, right through to Sao Paulo. So I mean, it was a very, very labor intensive is the wrong word, but it was a very decentralized model, but all brought together under this common sort of process that we had on managing money.
And what do you think about starting a financial firm now in your 20s or 30s? Because the likes of Buffett and Soros, they did in their 20s and 30s, but then you're obviously the chairperson, the chairman of Revolut, which is a fintech now, the new generation. I mean, what's your perspective on creating this? Yeah.
I think it's much harder now than it was. I mean, because you remember that when we first started Aberdeen in the 80s, fund management was a cottage industry. Now it's a massive global industry, dominated largely by the Americans. By the way, they really dominate asset management globally. All the big firms are largely American, with one or two exceptions, like UBS or a wealth manager rather than an asset manager. But yeah, I mean, it's largely American. I mean, as to the Revoluts of this world. I mean, Revolut is a phenomenal company. I mean, its growth is simply staggering, and its value is staggering. And what it does show, I think, is having a product, having a good product is the key thing. And what Revolut is a very, very good product. So, and if you're an asset manager and you've got a good product, you're going to do well. So, yeah, but Revolut has a chance of being, one of these generational success stories that you seldom see. I mean, it can be a global success story.
I'd love to go back then to kind of investment approach. What is the Martin Gilbert playbook for, what makes a good investor or a great investor?
I tend to probably label myself more of a value than a growth fund manager. And I like value, basically. So I'm sort of more in the Warren Buffett sort of type of camp. So yeah, I like cash flow, these sort of things. So I probably, we used to always call it growth at a Scottish price. So we like growth, and we like getting it at the right price rather than paying up for growth. But here I am, as I say, sitting on a board of one of the most phenomenal growth companies, that probably the best that the UK has ever produced. So yeah, so my style is that bottom up stock picker rather than a top down or a momentum fund manager.
And then what is your leadership playbook? You've mentioned being visible. You've emphasized open communication. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you become
very
a successful leader?
very short lines of communication, flat structures, being visible, being accessible, all the things that you can do in an asset manager, because you've got talented people. They want to be able to speak to you as well. They tell you what mistakes you're making running the business, these sort of things. So yeah, that's how I did it. I was always accessible. And yeah, I still am. I mean, most of the people I worked with are still close personal friends. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, it was a privilege, actually, to be the CEO of Aberdeen. The interesting thing was that, probably because I was the sole survivor of the three founders, I was acceptable as the CEO, and I don't mean that in a. So I'd sort of, I appointed myself rather than anything else, which is probably how I got away with being CEO for so long.
And as CEO, who do you turn to? I know you have people within the company, but did you have, I don't know, maybe mentors from early in your career that you spoke to?
Yeah, I suppose that's also a really good point as well, because being the CEO was quite a lonely existence. So you tend to know other CEOs as well. There's a sort of speak to them, but to a certain extent, there's no one else. The buck stops with you. You've got to just have confidence in your own ability and make decisions. That's all people want. They come to you constantly with what people who work with you come to you constantly and say, this is what do you think? And that all they're looking for is, you'd say, that sounds fine. Yeah, just go and do it. Yeah. So 90% of it is just backing up people, and then having the confidence when you do have to make the decisions yourself. Just have the confidence in your own ability. You're not going to get them all right, but don't be afraid to get them wrong. People want you to make decisions. That's the interesting thing about it. So don't make the business just doing nothing by not making decisions. So that's the key.
So making decisions and going a bit deeper on that, I mean, did you have a process or framework for decision making, or?
Yeah, well, not really. It's more instinct, I think. Experience teaches you, I think, a lot. So and don't get me wrong. I mean, I made a lot of bad decisions. I just happened to get more right than wrong. And I got some of the very big decisions right. So, examples would be recruiting Hugh Young right at the beginning, buying Deutsche Asset Management in 2005, which tripled us in size. So there were a lot of big decisions went well, but a lot of decisions didn't go so well. So I made a lot of mistakes in my career as well, such as split cap investment trust, these sort of things. But at the end of the day, we got more right than wrong. And I know I'm repeating myself here, people just want you to make decisions. They don't want the business not doing stuff because you're not making a decision or you're sitting on a decision or whatever it might be. So they're very, very, that's the important thing. Just make decisions.
Taking action.
Yeah, they want you to, they don't want to come to you and you say, well, I'll think about it. You just go, I think, yeah, that sounds fine. Or you say, you know what, I'm not sure I would do that. I would maybe look at it differently. That's one way. I think that's the key thing. Just make decisions. Don't procrastinate.
And if you have to look at your career and you have to pick only one moment, which was your highlights or your moment you're most proud of, what would it be? I know it's kind of on the spot.
I would say. I mean, I'm not proud of it, but the one I would say, the one that I would say the best thing I ever did was solving our getting 21 other firms to contribute to a fund during the split cap debacle. And I did it with an hour to spare on Christmas Eve, 2004. I will forever remember that. And I remember phoning the head regulator, I think with about 5 minutes to spare. And I always remember he was on a station platform in Devon or something. And I said, and I've done it. And that it's not the one I'm most proud of, but it's the one that was the most important decision I've ever made in my career. So yeah, I suppose that was the one that saved us. And I always remember him saying to me, I'm saying, this is really unfair. Why are we having to put in so much money into this fund and the big banks are only putting in small amounts? He said, I'll always remember he said to me, you have to settle, they don't. And that brought it home to me. We needed to settle this issue we had.
That was obviously one of the most pivotal moments, but also was it one of the most difficult negotiations, would you say?
Yeah, I would say the most difficult negotiation. It took 2 years probably of negotiating, just herding cats. And then we moved on. I also remember January 2005, Deutsche Asset Management put their asset management operation up for sale. And I remember the Financial Times reporter saying there were 21 firms interested in buying it. And I remember she said, Aberdeen will win, because she'd followed us for 2 years before that, and seen how we handled the how resilient business we were. And we did win in the end. We got to the final 2 and we won. So that transformed us. Though that sort of 6-month period, 8-month period from Christmas Eve 2004 to July 2005 was the making of the firm. Those are the two really big decisions that we probably got right.
And then I suppose today, what are you looking at in terms of investment opportunity? What excites you? I mean, keeping it super broad. I know you've expressed interest in Asia and so forth.
Yeah, UK. I mean, I still like India. I mean, I think India's got a lot of advantages. You know, China, it's got most of the advantages of China, probably without the government interference, as the government control or whatever. But yeah, I would say the UK is now by far and away the cheapest market globally. I mean, the UK small cap is probably the cheapest asset class globally. So there's real opportunity, I mean, at the moment. So yeah, look, I'm positive on things. I mean, I think we're going through a difficult period at the moment. Yeah, what I would say is UK small cap is the best asset class, the best value asset class globally at the moment.
But what do you think is the catalyst to get more investors invested in the UK? What do you think would be or could be a catalyst?
I think they have to go back to what the ISA was set up to do, which is to give tax breaks to invest in UK companies. There are now cash ISAs, which I think should be scrapped, or they should be scrapped for the very wealthy. They should be there to encourage people who, for small amounts of money, but not these large sums that are in them. And I think the ISA should be restricted to UK companies, which is what I would. So I would go back to how they were originally designed.
And then looking at
And and teaching people about companies as well, getting them excited about shares.
I think that's an interesting point, because I find when you go to the US and you speak to people, say in university, they've held shares since a much younger age, which I think Revolut is doing a fantastic job at to get people. Yeah,
they're fantastic. They've got a very they've got a share owning culture, whereas Europe generally we don't. We've got a bond holding culture really in Europe, haven't we? It's all about cash at the bank and low return, these sort of things. They don't get excited by owning shares.
But do you think that's kind of culturally ingrained and that won't change? Or do you think, companies like Revolut and kind of these more fintech companies could start to change this?
Well, I think the worry is that they've sort of almost moved on, haven't they? The generation well below me. I mean, when you get a situation that more people own crypto in the UK than own shares, it's rather worrying. So I've nothing against crypto, by the way. I think it's great as long as you understand it. But I would like more people to own shares.
Now, I'd love to ask, because I'm a student of history, but you've obviously lived through different history. I mean, it's not history 2008, but going back through these market crises and crashes, are just because, the US market's entered correction territory. But I'm wondering, what are some lessons throughout, say, 2008, the dot-com bubble, and, 1987?
Don't do anything. Just ride it out. Ride it out. Just don't panic. And if you've got the liquidity, buy more of the stuff you really like. I mean, they're great buying opportunities. These.
What do you tell investors? That's what you would tell investors, say.
I've been through 87, 2000. I've been through serious bear markets and corrections, and always is just be in the stocks. Make sure you own the right. And same with a fund manager who's underperforming. The only thing you ask is, don't try and trade your way out of this. Are you in the right stocks? Do you like the stocks you're in? Are you confident in them? If you are, just hold them.
And what would you say the biggest lessons are from, say, 2008?
Panic, I suppose. Try not to panic if you if you can. And yeah, just, I suppose the thing that frightened people about 2008 was, well, it was a serious crisis, because that was the global banking system. And people have an enormous amount of their wealth in global banks, as you know. So that was really the time to own stocks, of course, at that stage. And if you were in good shares, you were fine. You came out of it okay. It's just having too much cash in one place is what I would caution.
Too much cash. Let's take advantage of these corrections.
Yeah. You should have your money in shares, not cash. Cash is just a waste of, it's just, you're just going to lose money in cash.
Cash is
in
trash.
Real terms. Yeah. I like shares. Have confidence. Buy shares that are that you understand, that have good cash flow. The sort of those sort of things. I mean, what is it like? I mean, Novo at the moment, it's hard, isn't it? So, I mean, it's still a good company.
So taking a longer term view.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
And then I'd love to know your advice for university students. I mean, starting with, if you were 20 years old today in university, would you still go into finance? Would you go into tech? I mean, what would you?
I don't know. Yeah. I would say follow your passion, whatever your passion is. And the one bit of advice I always give is better to try and fail than not to try at all. And students are young enough to be able to take failure and sort of rebuild their careers. Do it early rather than wait till you've got a mortgage and children and these sort of things. So really, really, really go follow your passion. Work for yourself if you can. It's great fun working for yourself. And to a large extent, I always thought I was working for myself. I had a board, which was great chairman, etc. But to a large extent, I was lucky. I had a whole career really, almost as CEO, in charge. So yeah, it was great.
But I wouldn't put it all down to luck. I mean, there was obviously.
I know you've got to, you get the lucky breaks and then you've got to take advantage of them. But that's about confidence in your own ability, I would say. And I had confidence. I never really looked at the downside. I always thought I can handle the downside, but there's upside here. So yeah, I was never scared of making the decisions.
Would you say that was kind of one of the key aspects to success? Not being
the key to success is having confidence in your own ability without being completely stupid. And I had some good people round about me. That was the other thing. They were all from Aberdeen as well. The entire senior management of Aberdeen all lived in Aberdeen. So it was a really amazing company when you think 4 or 5 people who all came from the same city built this global business and were there at the end. I mean, they were there right from the beginning, a lot of them, right to the end. The CFO, Bill Rattray. I mean, the first year he was there, we had a turnover of 100,000, shall we say. And then by the end, when he retired, we were turning over 1.3, 1.4 billion, making 300 million. So it was that ability to grow. The other thing I'm really passionate about is play to people's strengths and cover up their weaknesses. So if someone has got a strength, always just don't sort of look on the downside of his weaknesses. Try and cover up their weaknesses, because all you do is, if you recruit someone else, replace them, they just come with a different set of weaknesses. No one has got 100% sort of ideal skill set. So it's it's really important that you work with people and not sort of concentrate on their weaknesses.
What are the mistakes you think you see young people making now when it comes to, leaving university? And yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I suppose they probably still too many of them go into the big banks and so on, and then they get frustrated there. Some of them, but don't get me wrong, some it suits some people, but I think you look at where the opportunities are. I mean, I would look at Riyadh now. I'd be looking ahead rather than maybe Asia now. So these sort of things, that's where I would be looking at. And sort of what sort of companies? Yeah, fintechs are great, especially when you can afford to do it when you're young. And you learn so many lessons if you're a startup, and you really do find how to run businesses, because you have to do everything, all that sort of thing. So yeah, I would encourage people to do different things, and don't put your CV that you run the investment club or something like that, because try and do something different. That's what I would do. And don't be afraid of going to university slightly later, maybe, or spending an extra couple of years at university. There's plenty of time. And when you go into the workplace, you want to be more older, more mature, I always think, as well. So, someone who goes and tries to be a professional footballer or something, it's great. If it's after university, take a year or two and try your passion. And then if necessary, you can go back and do something else.
Okay, so I have it wrong, because I'm wanting to go. I did a summer internship last year. I just want to go start working.
Yeah, some people do. Yeah, I mean, it's horses for courses, isn't it? I mean, I like different sort of CVs to a certain extent. I don't want a sort of CV that someone has worked in a bar or something. I want people who've done something different. So anything different that gives you a bit of difference. That's what a bit different experience is good.
And touching on a point you made earlier about Riyadh, I remember a reporter asked Henry Kravis of KKR if you could be born anywhere in the world, where would it be? And he said Japan, because he sees a big opportunity there. I mean, if you could be born anywhere and start your career anywhere in the world, where would it be? Would it be America, or would it be?
Yeah, I think America's still fantastic. I mean, it is by far and away the most resilient and adaptable country in the world. Half the world's wealth is there. I think I'd like to be born into the Qatar royal family or something like that. Yeah, I mean, the wealth is in the world is incredible. Yeah, I mean, look, I go back. My stroke of luck was being born in Malaysia. So yeah, you just want something different. And that gave me that window to the world. I've traveled all my life on my own, backwards and forwards to Malaysia. So, and when I think about it, a flight to Singapore takes you 12 hours. We had to stop 5 times. Those are the days of the early jets. You'd stop 5 times to get to Malaysia. So it was amazing. Listen, I was lucky. I was born in Malaysia. That gave me this focus on Asia, which we built a business around.
I'm just looking at the time. I know we're going over, but I suppose as a final question, what's a very on the spot question, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given by someone? Or,
do I don't know. I can't think of that. I suppose, I would turn that bit of advice I give people on myself. I say, just make decisions. Just make decisions and live or die by your decisions. Just try and get more right than wrong.
Can I ask actually one more? How do you avoid complacency? Because you've had such a successful career if you look at it, but even today you're doing so much.
Yeah. How do you just maybe fear of becoming irrelevant? I don't know what it is. I just love businesses. I like small businesses and as well. I love small businesses. I like just the thrill of business. So it's very interesting watching Nick Storonsky at Revolut. His management style, you don't become complacent there, I can assure you. I think I actually, you just got to make sure that people who work with you don't become complacent. That's a big thing. So you've got to be on their back the whole time.
Comes back to the idea of being a team player and really emphasis on the team.
Just keep the urgency, because if you become complacent, they become complacent. So you've got to keep driving. Just keep driving the business. And Nick's the best I've seen at that.
Well, Mr. Gilbert, we're looking forward in anticipation to the IPO with Revolut. But thank you so much for taking the time.
You have been listening to the Trinity SMF podcast. You can find more of this podcast on our website, www.trinitysmf.com, and follow us on our social media to find out more about the podcast releases, upcoming events, and much more. Thank you again for listening, and stay tuned.